Welcome to another episode of the Testing Peers. We have got three of our regulars and we've got a new face today, which is fantastic. So let's start by introducing our new character. Sergio, welcome on board.
Hi everyone. Glad to be here.
Thank you for joining us, Sergio. We've got Chris.
Hello.
And David.
Hiya.
And I'm Russell. And today we're going to have an episode talking about something that's close to all of our hearts, talk about professional development. But before we do, we want to give you a little message from our sponsors. So we've recently changed sponsors to Enfocus. So they're a UK-based software testing company. They've been around about 24 years. They can help with accelerating automation, performance testing, fully managed testing services. They also help actually train up testers with their Test Automation Academy. And they create people about 48 roles so far in the industry in the last few years. Fantastic company that sponsored PeersCon and helped us with other things in the past. You can find out more at enfocus.co.uk or info@enfocus.co.uk. But thank you very much for them for sponsoring us, and welcome on board to Testing Peers. So normally at this point we go into our little banter session. So I'm going to hand over to Sergio, who's been given the honour to think of a topic for the day. Go on, Sergio, spoil us.
Make you all a question, right?
Yeah.
So here it is. Be prepared. This is a tough one. What is like for each one of us, like your oldest memory that you have? And let's say, I hope that's a positive memory.
Take it, going through my front door about 20 minutes ago doesn't count. I'm not sure anything beyond that. My memory's not very long term. I can remember a memory, I'm about 5 years old, and I refer to it often, which is probably why I remember it, where I was on a party on a canal boat in the UK, dressed as, it was fancy dressed as pirates. But I'm never 100% certain if it's a memory or if it's an associated memory that I've been told about. That makes sense. But I think that's my oldest memory. I was about 5 years old.
So for me, I was about 3, and the reason it's quite significant is my dad worked in South Africa for a time, and we went over there for an extended holiday because his work contract was extended. And so we went out there, and I remember walking into a Zulu hut, and it's quite a distinct memory. There are no actual photos of it, so I know that it is an actual memory rather than a sort of reminder from a photo. And I do remember the sort of smell and the sort of darkness and the feeling of actually entering that Zulu hut for the first time. So yes, I was 3 for that memory.
I don't know which memories are actually my memories and which just come from like photographs and people talking about things. I'm the youngest child of 4 kids, so family often talks about things that may have happened when I wasn't really there. But I think the oldest memory that I have is a very sort of vague one of coming down the stairs in the morning, and it was actually a sunny day. And as I sort of turned the corner coming down the stairs, there was a big bright light coming in the sun in the morning into the dining area in the house, and just feeling kind of warm, and that's kind of it. No people, no experiences, just kind of like that concept, that sort of thought experience of turning a corner into a bright room. And I'd have been about 3 at that age, I imagine, as well.
And on my hand, I think the oldest one, I would be like around 6 or something like that. I remember being like on the middle of the street, and this lady passed riding a bicycle, and she told me, "Oh, you have school tomorrow. It's your first day, right?" And I was like, really? The fun is about to stop? So I still have that memory back then, being like just around on the street and getting like this news of going to the school, which back then I had no idea what it would be, right?
So yeah, until you've experienced school, it's impossible to know what it's going to be about, isn't it?
Yeah.
That thing older kids do that they moan about.
It's a bit like starting a new job. You never quite know what you're laying yourself in for.
after all those years, I'm now returning back to school, but to teach, which is like really curious.
You know, you're going to ruin every other kid's dreams.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's a very good way of leading us into our topic, professional development, really. Obviously, we're talking about teaching, things like that. And that's an interesting way to kind of learn and develop, isn't it? Is being, well, both sides of
Yeah,
it, teaching people and also being taught.
totally. I was given, let's say, this opportunity and this challenge actually, this the start of this year by a former teacher of mine that was my professor during my master thesis, and he knew me and he asked me, "Oh, Sergio, we need someone from the testing space to talk about testing. Do you want to do it?" And I was thinking, well, really? Me, a teacher in the university with the kids? Mm, and I kind of put that in my mind. It went like through a waterfall kind of process. And then in the end, after some many builds, I thought, why not? Let's do it, because sometimes when I feel like totally uncomfortable with things, I say I give a step, and but it can take like a while to give that step, right? Sometimes we are totally uncomfortable because you don't know like exactly what you are going to teach whenever you're like asked for to do this, right? And also from university standpoint, you have to go through like the exact topics um, that they expect you to teach them. So you need to be very well prepared for that. And well, I thought, why not? I still have time to learn by myself, like refresh some things. Well, we can know like many things whenever we are in a certain domain, but of course we never know like everything, right? Um, and so, for example, this for me was an opportunity to refresh some things, to learn like to also understand like some gaps that I have, to try to fill those gaps, and then use my whole background as a way to leverage my learning, and be able to share that in a way that would help the new generations, right?
There's something to be said, isn't there, for you have got to teach people something, and nothing will put you in a position where you need to learn faster than when you have to be in a position to teach people.
Yeah, oh,
Because
yeah.
you'll know some things, but in order to be able to sort of articulate and tell a story to other people, you need to be sort of prepared and able to articulate things in a way that will reach a broader audience than just yourself, and you'll have to have more attribution and resources to be able to share with people than probably your natural grasp would have. And it's actually a really challenging, but I think possibly the best way I've found of being able to develop and learn things myself is when I'm doing it so that I can teach other people. And David was a teacher before as well, so he
Oh, yeah.
probably can
Yeah.
well relate to that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think actually in terms of professional development, having to teach someone else, and it's very different to coaching. Coaching, you don't necessarily need to know the details, but teaching is so much different because you need to know what you're talking about and what you're sharing with people. You can use life experiences, you can use anecdotes, you can use examples, but unless you have that level of detail, then you have to do that preparation. You have to do that upfront. You will not always know everything. And key, I think, to any professional development or teaching or coaching is to accept times when we aren't the oracle. We don't know the answer. Don't make things up because you will get found out, and then your reputation and gets tarnished a little bit, or their confidence in your abilities gets diminished. So the best thing to do with any professional development is to accept that you have your limitations, but then use it yourself as a learning opportunity. You always find out the answers and give it to them. Sometimes they might not actually remember what they asked the question for, but actually you have taken in the interest, and actually that helps you with a reputation because actually you have put yourself out in order to try and find it. So teaching is a fantastic thing to actually do because you need to understand the topics before you can pass that information on.
Very good points, David, I have to say.
You remind me of not just teaching. Like I find that same with presentations, talks, or anything else like that. Anything that I have to do where I've got to present, I'll trigger myself to do a lot more self-learning and development, read around what I was thinking to talk about, to gather more insight, more information, to build a more rounded picture, talk to more people, whatever it may be. And that, like public speaking and other events, meetups, conferences, that often triggers me to do a lot of self-development to make sure I feel comfortable in front of my peers talking about a subject matter or a subject area.
I think the other thing is that it gives you passion. Finding out stuff, your own personal professional development gives you that passion. It reignites that thought process, that sort of idea of learning, that sort of idea of bettering ourselves as well. It's so important to be able to do that, and gives us a bit more confidence in our abilities. Be that in presentation, giving that presentation. If we know a bit more about the subject, then actually, if we get a difficult question at the end, we've got a greater chance of drawing on our expertise and drawing on our experiences of the extra knowledge that we have to be able to answer that question confidently.
But your point earlier, which is know your limits, isn't it, really? Don't pretend to be an expert, something you're not. If you want to give an opinion, you're always free to give opinions. But, know your limitations and boundaries.
It's the one time they say you probably shouldn't fake it till you make it if you're actually educating people, because there could be a lot of bad things that could happen as a result.
Tell that to my previous teachers, that's all I'm saying. I blame them for everything.
Has any of you been a product manager in your past careers?
No, not me.
Kind of.
Briefly I was, but it was against my will.
It wasn't your choice, you mean, Chris?
It was duress.
And I was asking that because whenever we are like through that role, or if you are dealing with something like that, sometimes whenever we are presenting some features, we'll restrict ourselves to presenting the features, but not really focus on the point of view of the end user, and so that is for me is like a sign that maybe we need to understand more about the domain. Maybe we need to research more so we understand how eventually this feature X that we are about to release, or the feature Z, how they can help out, let's say, end users. But we can only do that in a way that provides value if we are aware about if we understand about the different processes and the different methodologies, the different kinds of needs that people may have, say in their orgs. So sometimes in order to tell a story, we need to really learn or read a lot of books, right? Or watch a lot of movies to be able to have many sparks in our mind, and then we can pick the ones that we think may be useful to the target that we are trying to address. I'm not sure if I was confusing.
It's yeah, I mean, you've got to try and find useful resources not only for yourself but for other people that will stretch and and help you learn and pick up things. And oftentimes I'll look at things and start reading them and go, this isn't really something that I can engage well with, but I'm pretty sure this is a useful resource for other people. Um, I struggle sometimes with some writing to be able to consume things. But I know it's a valuable thing for other people. The same with like webinars and sort of YouTube learning stuff. Sometimes it's not something that I can personally engage with, but when trying to think of other people, you have to kind of take into account there might be some content here. There might be some value in this thing that maybe I don't know enough about to really be able to engage well with. And that's quite difficult to evaluate on this. And this is sometimes when you need to have trusted folks in the area that you can then reach out to and say who's got good resources on these things that you could recommend. Because I take a lot of value in recommendations of people and resources and things as we go through, because it's impossible to know all of the things and to even know all of the places that people might signpost. And there's so much out there. It's really wonderful to have people that maybe know about certain topics and areas that might be useful for things as well.
Actually, in my current position at work, I started what is known as the academies, or the Python Academy, really. Basically, we had put people on in-person training for Python, and it hadn't really stuck. It's the wrong level. Only a small bit was relevant. And so I came up with the idea that actually, as you say, Chris, there is so much information out there that why don't we curate sections in this academy that are suitable, so we can therefore tailor this academy for how we do Python, or what the areas of Python that we actually use. And we look at all the opportunities, and we try and include every learning style. We are struggling a bit with the kinesthetic one, but the reading, the listening, the watching, it can incorporate all that. And we're just coming to the end of this project, and it's had a really good uptake. And the idea also is part of the crowdsourcing. So therefore, the whole company, if they find a better resource, or they have put investment in their own learning, they can then feed back to the Coding Academy or the Python Academy, and have that particular resource incorporated into their page that's relevant as part of that. And it's worked really, really well, and it's had a really good uptake. But it's really important to have those people that can investigate and find, and also review the content, so to make it relevant for the actual people involved.
Can I make you all a question?
Of course.
I'm here as a guest, but yeah. So what, let's see, has been like in your own life, let's say that change of role that may have make a biggest impact on what you're doing, or that was most challenging to you, and if you can, what are like the learnings that you had from it? I'm asking this, and I will share that also, like, from my hand.
I think for me, the one that probably changed the way that I approached and thought about how I was working and how I shared it with other people was the first time I actually had reports directly into me. I went from being responsible for a team of consultants as a sort of an in-house person to others, but not really responsible for them, to then moving to a company where I had direct reports, and a lot of them didn't have a lot of awareness of the testing world that exists outside of the workplace. And what that forced me to do was to sort of appraise and look about things and talk about various different things, not from just my own experiences, but from other people, and to share things much more openly than I previously would have been. This might surprise people, but I used to be a lot shyer and quieter and less forthcoming with my opinions and stuff. David clearly agrees thoroughly with these things. When you're in a position where suddenly there's responsibility, and it's responsibility that you don't hate, and maybe you wanted to have that. I feel like a little bit with my kids when like the way I travel when I'm with my children is different. I'm quite a nervous, anxiety-ridden traveler when I'm by myself. With my kids, I'm quite responsible and sound, and I know how things should go. And it's almost like it forces that change in persona because of responsibility. And the same way was happening once I had direct reports. They weren't my children, clearly, very much more sensible people than that. But they would. I was different. I took more responsibility, and I found a lot of pleasure suddenly in enabling other people to have a little spark given to them, or do those sorts of things rather than just as a friend or a colleague. It was very much more, this is my opportunity. I've been empowered by my company to do these things. And that was a really exciting thing. It's what it meant I started blogging and sharing GIFs and memes and tweets and all the like with my colleagues, which I never did before.
For me, I could have gone down a similar route to Chris about line management, but there's another particular time when I worked for a company. So I came into the company as a sort of software tester, and we were looking at web-based applications. And I remember a colleague sort of said, "Do you want to move groups to become an embedded tester?" And I wanted a challenge. I'd done, web-based testing for a while, so I thought, yeah, okay, I'll do that. And actually, that opened up far more opportunities. I got eventually to work with Chris, and I'm in the position now because I have had that experience with working with hardware, working with embedded software, and it's really been useful. There is more to life than just webs, mobiles, and the understanding that software testing is. There is so much more, and I love people. I would love people to realize that there is more to that, which is why, you know, partly we bring those experiences to this podcast, because there is more out there than just the understanding of what software testing is.
It's hard to think of one. That's the challenge. There's lots of sort of things and moments and stuff like that, really. It might have been kind of truly getting a hold of understanding kind of agility, and that makes sense, and trying to move away from what I learned. So when I learned testing originally, I learned it as a silo, as an independent person that was the only tester in an organization that did it by learning ISTQB and what I would call quite waterfall-esque ways. And then I learned Agile separately, and the two didn't compute, if that makes sense. So it was kind of starting to work into a world and figuring out how agility and testing could work side by side. And then seeing that, hearing people at events talking about all that, pushing me into kind of how do we bring value earlier, in effect, is probably what developed me and made me think the most. And constantly refining that because it's still not a fixed thing in my head and it's evolving. And then DevOps has helped it shape it a little bit further and so on and so forth. It's never ending. But yeah, there's probably a movement where I went to try and like fit testing into Agile and didn't just go, well, right, it's a stage, and actually started thinking about it as not a phase. And then that shift to non-phase, like in effect, quality engineering. How do we all work as a team in order to deliver the highest value product with the least amount of effort? That was kind of, I think, the moment for me.
You have shared, let's say, great insights, and I will try to connect with what you said, David and Russell. But before going to that, let me also, let's say, give my personal experience on the role change that made me think more for a while, and that was actually, so I worked as a developer for several years, and also as a team lead and also at the same time a developer, mostly in a big R&D company or a big telco here in Portugal. And then for a brief period of time, I went to a software shopping kind of, how do you say, a consultancy company that would develop solutions for startups and mostly for startups. And it was like I kept doing development, also doing team leading, and then I was asked about this opportunity about becoming a product manager of X-Ray at the company where I currently work, and I asked like the founder, which was the person inviting me directly because he knew me, he knew my work, so he told me, well, you are going to do like demos for customers, webinars, documentation, specifying features. You're not going to develop anything, let's say. And so you're going to be more in the public side, events and all of that things. And for me, it was like you move from the IDE, you move from coding more to do something totally different. And I was really kind of lost whether I should take that route or not. And that was like a big change that actually changed the life since then, my life since then, because basically I left, let's say, development almost, because I still like to code and actually I'm teaching programming as we speak. So sometimes we can come across these personal changes or professional changes, and we can feel like totally uncomfortable with them. We may never have, like, say, done like a slide deck or a webinar or something like that. Maybe we have never actually reached out to potential customers. And how is that? And I remember that after accepting that role, during the first times, I was like really, trying to do my 120%, right? So, but at the same time, I was like afraid of, let's say, of this whole public speaking, talking to customers that know a lot more than you. In certain fields, they may come like with many, many tricky questions, but I also like to try to solve like challenges, and I consider that like that an opportunity for learning. But sometimes things come to us, and I think Russell was talking about agile, right? Agile, and I remember that concept when I heard about agile. So for 13 years I worked in this company, working in the waterfall kind of way, right? And with the siloed department for Q&A, and it was really old school, right? We did like amazing stuff, but in the old school way. And then I heard like about agile, and my boss back then, my manager back then, was telling me he was a very techie person, and agile is like the new thing, but I don't know what he means with that. And I moved to a consultancy company, and they said that they were working in agile because they were using sprints and all of that. Oh, yeah, so this is agile. Okay, so we don't make like a big specification in the start, and we need to do like incremental changes. Okay, got it. And then my new manager was asking me, "Oh, but how do we do testing in agile?" And I was thinking, "Oh, that's a good question, because usually we would do it in the end. How can we do it now?" And then you have to explain, how do you build that to the to the customer that is going to buy your work, because they see that as a cost. Like, it's that discussion that we have all the time. So for me, it took a while, even for myself, to understand what agile mean and to experience, let's say, agile in a way that it would be close to agile. I never was like in a 100% agile scenario. I
Is
had,
anyone?
yeah, but also, and now going to touch also the topic that David mentioned, yeah, hardware testing. That's one of the most interesting challenges that I had uh, when I was given a task of going to a hardware team and actually teach them about doing builds, automated builds, doing testing in the hardware. They were saying that that's totally impossible, and they were doing like all this regression testing using HP Quality Center. Uh, may rest in peace. And 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 basically, I had to solve. We had to solve. I was not really the one solving it, but the team back then, the hardware department, they were like had also software firmware, and the teams in that department they were also siloed and they wouldn't communicate. So there was no really testability in terms of the tool, but also there were no automated builds. So I got like a Jenkins there, also some Cucumber there, some basic building blocks to automate the hardware. We tried to discuss what could be automated. Let's think together about the how we can automate this hardware. Is there like any APIs? Can we do like some hacks to do like to power off this thing or to power it on through some sort of a API and whatever that API would mean. Well, we implemented some. Don't tell this anyone. Um, we implemented like an API on top of a telnet, like so we would parse like the commands from the telnet, the CLI. They were like more or less they followed like a syntax, and we abstract that into a Ruby API. Okay, but comments aside. So coming back to the testing field, I think that for many people, they think that just testing is just about software testing because we speak a lot about software testing. And for me, testing is a lot more than that. It's something that also coming back to the personal development topic, we in testing, we have to really learn a lot about different things, right? It's not just about software. Also about the hardware, about so things are built about to like history, about humans. I think in the end, our software is going to be used by humans, right? So that has been like also one topic that has kind of been fascinating me for a while because because the biggest problem that we have in software is actually people, as I usually say, right?
Yeah.
Because the way that we deal with one another, the way that we understand or misunderstand things, that that in the end they will be built into the products that we make, and they will be used by other people. So the more that we learn about how we understand things and all these topics like exploratory testing, unknowns, how we have been, we as humans have been understanding the world since we are here in this planet, right? And how do we understand? How do we try to figure out like the problems and the things that are there in the universe? And I remember that Robert, I think it was Dan Ashby that actually shared with me a few years ago a series that about the unknowns, and I don't remember the exact name, but I can research that and then share it with anyone that is listening to our podcast. But um, actually, is that series was about how we have been trying, we as humans, are like the top scientists in the world, have been trying to understand the world around us, right? And like all the tactics that we use, and I think we can then extrapolate that to our daily basis, and also as a way to learn more about certain things and provide us like a backpack of knowledge that we can use to move a step in front or a step aside. Maybe you are moving a bit to the right. Maybe we can pursue our career in a different direction, right? So if you ask me, Sergio, what would you be like to be doing, right? Really doing. And I wouldn't say that is what I'm doing right now. Is that awful to say? I hope not. But I would really like to like build like do like research and development, building like trying to make things that nobody really thought about, trying to solve like tough topics. That would be like a, getting people together, doing brainstorming, try to do like something really amazing that would solve really interesting challenges. That would be for me like the thing that would make me so happy. I'm not there. Maybe I'm not going to be there, right? But sometimes what I've been finding is sometimes our happiness and our success may not be exactly what we learn like in school, right? Maybe the course that we took, but we'll find through our lives the things that we like and the things that we don't like, right? And maybe we can start to move away from the things that we don't like and be happier with that. The things that we like, sometimes we have to discover, and there's no clear route on that.
There's a lot of reflection that's required with these things, isn't it? So I know that in my 2024 job hunt, which has been a delight for everyone, including myself, I partook in a thing called the Job Search Council, which is via Phil Terry's Never Search Alone book, and one of the activities that we did was a thing that's called a Manukan two-pager, and it asks for you to be able to sort of reflect on your must-haves and must-have nots, your absolute no's and your absolute yeses. And as they say, they consider there's a lot of inversion that's required. So if you know everything that you hate, that should help to inform a lot of the stuff that you're going to love. And things that your hard no's will sort of be counter to those hard yeses. And looking at professional development and where you want to go, what sort of roles you want to have, knowing the things that bring you joy, passion, David mentioned before, and things that you want to be doing more of. That going through activities of reflection along those lines can really help you identify what it is that I'm good. But the point of the practice of the Manukan two-pager isn't just that you do it for yourself, but you also do it with peers who hold you accountable and then can sort of tell you if you're crazy or if things make sense. And they also enable you to sort of focus yourself and go, right, well, these are the sorts of roles I want to be going for. How closely do they align with these values that I hold now, or my short and long term goals? How well do they apply to those things? And I think it's very easy when we're sort of in the weeds to sort of get stuck and find ourselves just thinking about what's next. And often there's a bit further forward. What direction do we want to take? What route do we have to take in order to get there? And there's quite a lot to sort of reflect on there. Now, we're quite close towards the end, but does anyone have any sort of closing statements, is what we like to sort of suggest? Any resources or anything they think might be useful?
Well, I was just going to say as a reflection that we should never shy away from professional development. The thing that highlighted that from me, from Russell, is that throughout my career is I've always tried to stay relevant, and things are moving on, and we are looking at a new era with AI. CI/CD has come in. As you said, previous to that, Agile has come in and replaced waterfall. We need to be able to move with the times and be able to stay relevant as part of it. So don't shy away from professional development. And as Chris said, use your existing resources, use the internet. There are so many different things out there that will cater for your learning style, and just use them, absorb it, give yourself time to use it either in your current role or take it on to the next role that you then can then experience that as part of that as well. Because every experience you have is good for your own personal development, your own self-esteem, but also you can share that with others and take people along for the ride. If you've got that enthusiasm, you can take it forward and bring other people along on the journey.
But I was going to talk briefly about, you'll probably have heard of something like the 70-20-10 model, of stuff like that, about professional development. And that was based on a little bit of research rather than billions and billions of pounds of research. But I'm not going to say the exact numbers hold true. But I think it's a really, really important part that all of the examples we generally gave were when we were working through problems, were hands-on doing the problem versus us sat in a training room, classroom, doing things. We had to do some learning, but it was via actually kind of that implementation of actually doing things that actually made the big difference for us. It was having conversations with our colleagues, speaking to our developer people, trying to work out solutions that actually ultimately gave us that professional development and put us in a better professional space. So I guess my ending note is, think about the blend of professional development isn't just a classroom. It isn't just interaction. It isn't just on the job experience. It's using those in the right balance for the situation you're in. Be it 70-20-10, be it 60-30-10 or whatever. The numbers don't exactly need to be, but it's a combination of training, conversations, and job experience that generally will get you there. That's the ultimate point.
One thing, now I learned a new thing, right? I wasn't aware about this model. And it makes total sense, I have to say. And as also David mentioned, taking time to update, to refresh ourselves is really important, right? Sometimes we forget about that. And I've seen that so many times, especially whenever we're like in places where that don't they don't foster, let's say, learning. They don't give you opportunities to learn, like in loco. I mean, give you like the space to try out like new things with the work that you are maybe doing. But even though we might be like even though if we are like in such a situation, I think we can always, let's say, come back home and learn more about, like in that model that you were referring, Russell. Learn more by reading more courses, or by going over some books. We can also go to meetups and discuss with other people that know about things in a certain area. Maybe discover like things that we are not really aware, because there's so much thing on the internet, but sometimes it's really hard to get like the things that matter most to us in a given stage. So I think that, and I've seen many times many of ourselves actually taking us inhibiting themselves from taking the time to learn, and which is really a pity, because sometimes we all get like excuses. Oh, because there is no meetup on my city, on my town. Maybe I'll go to the gym. Maybe we have a bunch of stuff like in our lives, but on IT we cannot really stay outdated, right? So we really need to keep up with the pace.
It's never going to end. And that's that's a beautiful way to end it, because professional development shouldn't ever end as well. Look at that. Thank you, Sergio, for joining us. Thanks again to Ross and David, and to Focus. If we have calculated correctly, this will be our last episode of the year. So thank you for joining us in 2024, friends. Good news is Testing Peers conference is in March 2025. Tickets will still be available at £25 a head. Please consider coming along. Buy one for a friend. Bring other people along. We're looking forward to a really fun, action-packed conference day for the second Testing Peers conference. If you want to give us any feedback, you can find us mostly on LinkedIn, and you can also email us. Contact us at testingpeers.com, and sometimes on YouTube if the RSS feed is behaving itself. Thank you very much, friends. Thanks, Sergio, again, and we'll see you, you'll hear us and we won't see you next time.
For now, it's goodbye from the Testing Peers.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.